Of course, we do have a basic training, and that could be said, oh, but that's the curriculum. Isn't that the curriculum? Um, well, it's teachings that are going to be passed from teacher to student after initiation, and they have to be accurate with what was passed on. But we don't have what for instance, Golden Dawn and all of the other esoteric orders would have, which is a predefined curriculum, like BOTA, all of these other orders, they have a pretty specific thing settled.
Like a syllabus.
A syllabus. It's literally a syllabus, yeah.
Work from.
Yeah.
Where here, like, I don't give anyone a syllabus in terms of training.
Right.
But there are steps because training builds on itself. So therefore, are we following sort of a loose curriculum in terms of teaching? And what you said before, of course, keeping the integrity of the line.
This is the thing that we have to be very aware of, is the fact that we don't really have a curriculum per se, because each student is a student, which means that your curriculum can start here because it's you, but if it is the other priestess, it will start somewhere else because that's her. So I really don't think that we have a step 1, step 2, step 3, because it's very fluid and it's very in the moment. There is this idea that every Alexandrian have to have every single piece of information there is and ever was. What do you think about this?
I think it's sort of impossible. At this point, it's impossible to have every piece of information, just because we're how many years down the line now? 50 years and different developments have occurred. It's like the internet as well. It's impossible to know everything about every discipline. But I would say that no, not every Alexandrian needs to know absolutely everything, while perhaps there are some Alexandrians that should know everything or be trained in absolutely everything because they are predisposed to it, geared for it, intellectually and emotionally mature and ready for it. And I don't want to say that that's another sort of hierarchy, like, oh, this person's better than this person. But maybe I am saying that in some ways, in sense that they have like a skill set or a skill level or a deep interest that needs to be cultivated, and therefore they learn some other things that I know that they can handle.
We talked about curses here.
That's right, yeah.
And that is one of the examples. The teaching of curses is not really done to every single Alexandrian there is. And the reason why it's not done, it's because it takes a kind of a priest or a priestess to actually handle the curse or a curse or that particular teaching. So, and other teachings, I think it's very spontaneous and very organical, because some other teachings only come about when the necessity of teaching them arise. There are some things in the craft that you don't really teach in a linear way. Actually, I don't think that the teaching and the craft is linear at all. You know, training might be just for the sake of organization of things. You know, you don't start with invocations, for instance, of the god and the goddess. You will start with casting of the circle first, because it's a bit less
foundational, right?
Foundational things, right? So, and of course, you know, just for the sake of logic and makes sense that way. But this also changes from teacher to teacher, and this is why there are good teachers and bad teachers, right? So, some people have the predisposition of being very good at what they do, and then others not so much. So, and it's not their fault. It's just that they're not wired that way, and it's fine to not be a good teacher. Just don't teach.
Yeah.
You know, please don't teach.
That's an impossibility. There will always be teachers who shouldn't.
But this is the thing. The worst of this is that most terrible teachers do not realize that they're terrible.
No, they actually quite the opposite. They think they're fantastic.
So lack of consciousness, I would think, in the individual, which takes the individual in a wrong way, right? Because it's, you know, if I'm not good at teaching and I'm very boring, or I'm actually bored by teaching others, which happened with some good teachers, actually. It's not because you're not a good teacher. It's just because you're bored if you do that. And then it turns into hell. So it's better not to teach and pass it on to somebody that have that predisposition and that patience and that vocation, I would think.
If one of your initiates was seeking the higher degrees, right, second and third,
right,
and from your perspective, these would be not great teachers,
right?
How do you view the higher degrees? Do you view the higher degrees as like teaching degrees, in the sense of, if you get the third degree, then this person will be a good teacher?
It would be very limited, I think, if I would say that, because it's not about a role. A third degree, it's not only a teacher. It could be a teacher, but it doesn't have to be a teacher. And then again, one of the pillars of our tradition is freedom. So we do have the freedom of choice of teaching or not. But the problem arises when people actually think that you have to teach. If you're free, you have to teach. And here it is. If the person receives the third degree and it's a terrible teacher, now you have somebody that is teaching because they told them to teach, and is terrible at it. And now you have a problem. You have an entire group of people being taught by this person, and it's terrible. It's horrendous, and perhaps even the teaching is going to be very lacking and not really very good. I think that degrees are related with spiritual progression, consciousness, and work that you develop all over the years. And there are people who stay in the first degree forever.
Forever. And quite comfortably so.
Yeah.
And I think we've said this before, that, you know, our first degrees are full-fledged witches.
Yes.
Basically do almost everything.
Well, they're priests and priestesses. So a third degree, it's not necessarily a teacher. Not third degree teachers are good teachers. They could be very good, and that should be encouraged. If the person has this particular aptitude, should be encouraged to continue to develop that. But I've also seen cases when people they started as very good, and then they became bored by what is going on, and then they begin to corrupt. Because the biggest corruption there is, I think, in my perspective, is when somebody is bored to tears of what is going on. Oh, God, now I have to go back in the first degree and teach the casting of the circle. And well, but this is the thing. This is where the thing lies. If at that point you reach that point that is like, oh my God, I can't do this, then stop. Stop, because this is not about you. Although it's good for you to stop and not go through hell, right?
Yeah.
Just stop. Stop teaching. Do not teach anymore, because those who are going to be taught by you in that state are going to actually be lacking on the teaching. So the third degrees, when they are teachers and they become bored, teaching becomes corrupted because they begin to put things in to become less boring, and they are now unconsciously corrupting the teaching. Do you see what I mean? Pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And then trying to spice it up with for yourself to make you sort of reinterested in, oh God, teaching the elements again. And then this sort of introduction to almost like heretical beliefs. I don't want to be that dramatic, but like heretical teachings that then stray from the line. So with that in mind, would it be good to have a curriculum? And this steps on the toes, of course, of, Coven autonomy. But should there be a curriculum then? So
the moment you have a curriculum, you lose the magic.
Oh, I know. It's such a catch-22.
It is, because, and this is the thing, once you begin to structure things and to make them, and don't get me wrong, structure things, we like structure. It's not that, I'm not talking about that. But once you begin to kind of put them stacked into an order, and this is this, and then next goes this, next goes that, you are killing the spontaneity and the organic nature of the teaching, which should always be there, because we are teaching human beings, and human beings in different stages of development of their own spirit. And that is a mystery that should be preserved and not corrupted. So I think that it should just go into this flow of just follow the flow of the student, and then the teaching will go and it will stay with them. Not really staggering things. And because you can't have a mold for everyone. That it doesn't happen in the craft, and it can happen in the craft. There is a respect for the individual. There is a respect for the evolution of the individual, the pace, the rhythm. And this is something that sometimes now I think that the orders are beginning to think twice about this and say, oh, it's at your own pace. I see this a lot, at your own pace, right? But still, there is a curriculum. But now they're doing a little bit more of a loose thing. Oh, let's go through the Kabbalah and Tree of Life and this is just that, you know.
But it does start off a little bit like a mold. And I think, and this is just, classical teaching, even in our education systems. If you're taking for example, a creative writing class, you still kind of have to start with, I don't know, like writing a poem in iambic pentameter, right? As like Shakespeare did. And it's like when you start to like master those sort of standard rules, I would say, then you can start, and then after that, the magic starts to happen, right? That's when things start to develop, or you become more creative because you have that sort of foundation. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So it's like that constant balance. It's like constant balance between like order, and I even want to say a little bit of like disorder that can start to happen in the circle, but that's when the magic is happening.
I remember one time I was in a circle, and we do have a sequence of things that we do, and then I purposely didn't do one of them. And I could see the initiates getting very anxious. Really anxious about, okay, so what's happening? Should I intervene? Should I not intervene? And one of them actually called me and said, "You forgot to do this."
Oh no!
And then I said, "What are you going to do about it?" I just wanted to see what was the response. How would they respond? Would they respond magically and take the hold of the if there was a lack of something? Okay, so what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And if you're going to take the initiative of doing it. And this is why it's organic, because it's just flow. It flows, it flows that way. And of course, whomever not being inside of a magic circle didn't feel this, that there is a certain organic flow into things. And the moment that you try to cube it, the moment that you try to Lego it, it's going to lose this, and it's going to lose the flow, the magic, because in that flow is where the magic lies. In that flow is where and how and why we call it art. This is why we call it art. So your circle is different from mine, because although we have the same technique, the same frame, it's never the same for me, it's never the same for you, but mine is different from yours as well. So the only thing that we have to be really conscious here is about, is it effective? Now, if it is a lousy circle, then you're allowed to quit. But if it is effective or not, if it is equally effective, then that's the art of it.
For some individuals, this will take a long time to let go of the curriculum and circle sometimes, and then let that flow, versus others who will want to just hang on to the rigidity of, well, this comes next, and this comes next, and this comes next, and then this comes next, and then sort of impeding where sort of creation happens, where the art happens.
I want to talk about gossip as well. I think that it's very important for us to address this because it has been doing a lot of harm to the craft and devastating sometimes to people. All it takes is somebody to say you're a pedophile, and 3 or 4 people will accuse you of pedophilia, and now you have this whole thing over you and people starting to cancel you, and you're done. Unfortunately, today, this is how it works, right? Witches love gossip. They do love gossip. They do.
It's endemic in the human condition.
That's right.
I don't know anyone, honestly, I don't know anyone who doesn't gossip on occasion. Right?
It's fine. And sometimes it is worth to stir the cauldron. You have to stir a little bit of the cauldron to bring that wonderful discussion out and to really kind of see how people stand in this point. And to create actually a space for people to voice their opinion. Because sometimes they're not voicing the opinion because nobody stirs the cauldron. Nobody asks. True. So I think that space is important. The space of the cauldron stirring is important, and sometimes we do that. But it has become very vicious, and just vicious, with no sense of or purpose other than viciousness. And that is bringing disrepute to the craft, and that is not what we do.
Yeah,
especially to each other.
Yeah,
it has been going on for quite a while, and it's really very, very, it's awful.
And absolutely damaging not only to the individual, but damaging, as you said, to the craft itself. And I'm sure there's probably many people who are aware, that there is a Grand Sabbat being held in England next year. So it's 2025.
Oh, that's right.
And they don't happen all that often. And it is a time for Alexandrians to get together and learn from one another and celebrate, because usually we are all clustered in our own covens doing our own work. And right, the Grand Sabbat should be open to all Alexandrians. And this is gossip in the sense of this is not really occurring with this one, that there have been individuals excluded who are Alexandrian priesthood, verified priesthood, who are not being allowed to participate based on rumor and based on gossip.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because that is totally against what we stand for. But, I think that we need to really be very aware of these things because these are not what we stand for. And one of the things that we stand for is truth. And if that's what this is, and also, all of the other things, beauty, power, and freedom. But to block people from attending is a little bit it's really against what we stand for, I think.
It really is. For example, people should be really wary. Like if you haven't actually stood in circle with another individual, I think you need to speak from experience, I should say, with that person. So unless you haven't actually attended a circle that they're in, you need to be mindful of what you say, right, about what their practices could be, practice could be, or whatnot. And also, this isn't to say, too, that, some people you just don't like. And that's perfectly fine. Like, you do not have to like every single priest and priestess in Alexandrian tradition. But when it comes to a Grand Sabbat, there is solidarity. And that is where you put those feelings aside and you respect that person as fellow priesthood.
Yeah. Because that doesn't go away, does it?
No.
Yeah. No. So the condition of being priesthood doesn't go away just because somebody doesn't like another person.
Exactly. For good reasons or bad.
There has been, and this is the worst thing, because this is corroding the tradition. And I'm sure this happens in many other places, including the Gardnerian tradition. but it does corrode things, and it has a very nasty effect. And if you are somebody that you tend to perpetuate these things, you should stop doing it, because you should be looking at your office as priesthood, and that is what you should be looking at and see and kind of ask, is this productive? Is this really something that is bringing anything creative and of value, or even is it fertile now? Okay. Yeah. So there was a priestess who told me this, that I've never forget this. Somebody tells you something about somebody that you don't know, or that you know, but you have never met, or you don't know the person really very well. But the other person has experience with that person, and they give you a card, their card, which is their opinion, with everything that is written about that person that they don't like, that they have the experience from. And then they give it to that person. And that person that doesn't know this individual very well keeps the card. So next time they are with somebody else that actually mentions the name of this person, they take the card out and they read it from it. So this is perpetuated over and over again. So cards are being distributed about people. And of course, people have their opinions and they have their, and it's fine. It's fine. But it should, as priesthoods, they should go above anything that it's Monday.
I know. And this is, it's tricky, right? And usually, a lot of these cards originate from higher degree priesthood, who are in positions of power, who are in positions of authority.
Right.
And then these cards get dealt to first degrees and other initiates, and they're taken as, biblical script. And then it's hard to break out of that. And then do you think too that, social media has really compounded this in the sense of gossip and the ruining of reputations or the spreading of falsehoods?
I think that there was a very wise rule that a coven should not know where another coven abides.
Seriously.
And because of the times that we're living right now, and when Alex and Max in the 70s was the same, it was the newspapers, but, and there was gatherings and there was like the soapboxes and, all of those things. It's very difficult for us to get away from social media at the moment, because it is what we are, and it formed actually minds right now. So it's part of our lives. It's impossible to just not. But yes, yes, but not in a good way. Yes, I think that it actually aggravated it, because it gave a platform for people to hide and discuss in groups that are nasty on the internet, and I saw that in the Alexandrian network. When I had the Alexandrian network, I saw how nasty it went. And I'm sure this happens in other places as well. But this has to stop. It has to stop, because it has brought so much disrepute to the craft that it can actually hurt to the point that it's non-mendable. You know? So I think that people need to think about what they're saying. They need to stop perpetuating gossip. It can't stop there with them. But people do not do that. They perpetuate this. They continue to babble and parroting, all of these gossips. And I'm talking about everybody. I mean, there's gossips about, everyone. There is good, interesting gossip and a little bit naughty gossip. And then there is the really dangerous gossip, which is unthinkable that anyone could just do that. But, I guess that it's the nature of some people.
No one knows who I am. And that's perfectly fine with me. But for you, Karagan, you're really a public figure in the craft. And have you been a victim to this in terms of gossip or made up stories or on the internet?
Oh, many times. I still am. I still am. And I think that it's very unfortunate, because people don't know me. Most of the people that perpetuate this gossip don't know me. One of the things that it's very interesting and I find it very funny is that they say that I don't write everything that it's me in the internet. I have an assistant that does all of the things for me.
So you have a ghostwriter.
I have a ghostwriter and I have somebody that does the communications. It's not me at all. So
Wow.
I don't deal with communications with people. I'm too high to deal with that. And of course, I'm being sarcastic, people.
Oh,
It is always me.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is this, and this is a perpetuation of an image that I'm not, that I am, and or that I said this, or that I did this, or that I had people waiting for me in venues with baseball bats.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, I'm not. In London. It's very interesting that these things, and of course this, what I did right now, it's also can be considered a gossip. But that's what you said. You said, you're kidding me. Yeah,
Exactly.
That's exactly what happens when somebody says a gossip, and
Exactly. The response.
oh my God, yeah.
And then tell me more is the next one.
Exactly. And this is
Tell me
what
more.
really actually brings the person to repeat, because
Yeah.
it's so extraordinary about that person. It's so extraordinary circumstance that they actually think that it's worth repeating. And that's what they do.
And it's a really disservice too, in the sense of, because there are legitimate like red flag warnings around individuals.
There are, yeah.
And that muddles it. So therefore, in terms of like rumor versus truth.
Yes, fact. Yeah.
That's fact. That's, taken from many people's experiences. Did you know also, Karagan, this brings up another, did you know that there's actually another Grand Sabbat that is occurring? And it's before the one in England in 2025. And it's actually in Portugal.
Really?
Which is your home base.
It is my home base. I haven't been invited yet.
You have not been invited to...
Well, maybe it's true. Who knows? It might be a gossip. But that would be lovely. Wouldn't that be lovely?
Wouldn't that be perfect?
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. And I would be the first one to spread the gossip. And if I had a podcast...
If you did.
If I had a podcast, I would
spread it.
Spread it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something might be occurring.
That's right. Yes.